Hello and welcome to Rob from the Internet Talks About Beer, a show where we discuss different styles of beer, beer history, beer flavor profiles. We give shout outs to breweries we think make exceptional beer, and we talk about whatever else happens to come to mind during the course of the conversation. I'm Rob from the Internet. Let's talk about beer. All right, so joining me today is one of my more recent internet friends, Jesse Bussard. I assume that's how you pronounce your last name. Yeah. If you could, Jesse, tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got into the world of craft beer, and what you do when you're not talking to people like me about craft beer and things related
Sure
to it.
thing. So I'm Jesse Bussard, and I am the executive director of the Craft Maltsters Guild. We are a trade association for the folks that help turn small grains into malt for brewers and distillers. And we really work up and down the supply chain, as well, with everyone from barley researchers to brewers and distillers using craft malt. So that's kind of what I do now. I got into craft beer and eventually malt as a as a home brewer. Really, it all started when I was in graduate school. I got interested in beer. Started exploring, doing all the things that craft beer geeks do when they get into it, trying different styles, different beers from different breweries, always picking up, new and interesting beers that I'm finding in the stores. And there were some really cool beer bars in Lexington, Kentucky when I lived there and when I was going to grad school there. And so there was like this one that you could go to, and they had like a beer menu they'd hand you that was in like a binder. Okay.
Are you talking about Hopcat?
No, it wasn't Hopcat. That's
Oh, because they have a lot
isn't
of
that
beer
in
there
Louisville?
too. No, they have one in
Okay.
Lexington.
No, this wasn't Hopcat. It was a different place. It was a local bar. But their thing was they had like all this beers from all these different places. And so like you could go there and all the beers were sorted by country in the book. And they had beer from literally every country that you could imagine. Like there was beer from South Africa and beer from Australia and beer from China and beer from Scotland. It was really cool. And so I thought that was a really cool thing. And like that really helped to then continue to help me expand my beer interest. But yeah, that's kind of where it all started, was grad school, drinking craft beers and getting into doing beer geeky things, and then eventually homebrewing, and eventually actually being interested in working in the professional brewing industry in kind of more of a communications, PR, marketing, and events planning role. And I started a beer events promotions company called Fermentana, that was based in Montana when I lived there previously, because I lived in Montana for a decade before I moved back here to Pennsylvania just in September. So
Nice.
Fermentana. Yeah, it's a play on the state's name and fermentation. So
Yep. Nope. That's fantastic. Yeah. We actually have a little bar similar to what you were describing, not too far from here, about 45 minutes from me. It's called the Elbow Room, and they also have a binder of beers from all over the world. But their gimmick is they tend to have more of the rare beers from around the world, so ones that
yeah,
are harder to get. So the place is kind of expensive to go to when you pull stuff from that book. I mean, you're talking $30 and $40 bottles of beer, but they're well worth it because they're fantastic beers.
yeah, definitely. I tried some really interesting, fun stuff at that bar when I was going to school in Lexington. Really, I'm glad that place existed. The other added bonus was they had like German food on the menu, and
oh, you can't go wrong with that. Sausage and potatoes.
But it was just like a general bar. Like you walked in and there was just pool tables and a really long bar. But the really random thing that they did in the summer, that is just, I have to mention it because I just remembered it, is they had volleyball, like sand net court areas behind the building. And in the summertime, they would have volleyball league and it was like popular, so popular. So random. So
I mean,
random
hey,
though,
you're
because
gonna have
I'm like,
you got beers from all over the world and volleyball. I mean, hey, okay.
anyway, that was a thing.
So as we were discussing right before we started recording, I never really thought about it thought about craft malting being a thing, because as a home brewer, I just buy malt from the local
Yep.
homebrew shop or wherever. Never really thought about craft malting. Explain this a little bit. Go into detail about craft malting and how it is you got into being the president of the Guild of Craft
Right.
Maltsters.
Well, let's talk about what is craft malt first off. So, craft malt is kind of a movement that sprung out of the local food movement, really. Because we're all we want to buy our food locally. Why wouldn't we also want to buy our and maybe we want to drink locally, but when we think about food, we want to know where it's from. But when we think about beer, for some reason, people are not thinking about the ingredients going into the beer. Where are they coming from? Are they sourced locally? And so the craft malt's really about relocalizing supply chains for brewers and distillers. It's about using grains grown in those regions to create beers and spirits that are almost like they have the terroir of the place, or it's about more than it's about thinking about more about your malt, thinking more about your malts. Malt matters, and it doesn't get enough credit. um, I think craft malt is we're here to shake things up and get brewers and distillers excited about malt again. And I think craft malt is, while it's a very small segment of the entire malting industry, we're shaking things up to a point that we're pushing boundaries on like innovations, and like brewers brewers are doing things now, like with craft maltsters, where they're working with a maltster to design a custom malt that's specifically what they want for like some unique beer they want to do. You know, so they have this ability to kind of work hand in hand with their maltster to create the palette of flavors that they want to work with for the beers that they're producing.
Yeah, if I had the opportunity to handcraft a malt for a beer I was brewing, I mean, I'd be all over it. I think that'd be awesome. You have your own signature malt for your own special brew of beer that you're doing. That'd be great. I get it. I mean, my wife and I are very much into supporting local businesses. We shop local, as much as we can, and we buy all our groceries from smaller mom and pop shops when we can, as opposed to buying from the big chains and things like that. So this is something, if it was available to me, most definitely I would look into utilizing it.
Well, cool. Just in fact, I actually do have two craft maltsters in Ontario. Harvest Hop
Nice.
and Malt is in Puslinch, Ontario. I don't know where that is.
Oh yeah,
Puslinch,
Pusslich, Ontario. It's about 30
Okay,
minutes from
so
me.
there's
Yeah.
one. I know London Brewing Cooperative in Toronto. I think they're in London. They use craft malt.
Would they be in
Yes,
London?
they use craft malt.
Yeah.
And then Barn Owl Malt in Sterling, Ontario, is the other craft maltster in Ontario.
Yeah, I don't know where Sterling, Ontario is. I'm a fairly recent transplant here. I'm from the States originally and moved here a few years ago, so I'm still learning where everything is. But I do know that Puslinch is about 30 or so minutes from me because my sister-in-law lives there.
That's cool. Very cool. But yes, there is craft malt near you. And so I would imagine some of the local breweries that you frequent may possibly already be using craft malt and you just didn't know it.
Could very well be.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
super cool.
So speaking of craft malts and beers, what are you drinking
tonight? I am drinking a Christmas ale from Aurochs Brewing Company in Pittsburgh, PA. It is 8% alcohol by volume.
So it's a nice light beer. It's a session ale.
Very much so. It's got some nice like spice character in the background and like a little bit of gingerbread flavor in it, but it's pretty dry. It's not much very sweet. It's pretty dry, and it's got like a nice like herbal hoppiness, I would say.
Nice. Well, I am currently taking the last swig of an ESB from a local brewery called Nickelbrook. This is their Equilibrium. I get it by the keg. I have a nice big commercial cooler out in the garage where I have 3 taps, and I get this kegs of this, and I always have it on tap when I can because it's fantastic. It's it's a very traditional English style bitter. So, and then as soon as I finish that, I'm moving on to a nice quality German smoked Maltsters.
Nice.
So this is one of my favorite beers. It's got just that right level of smoke, and it's got a nice sweet biscuity backbone to it.
Yeah, I've had that one. I agree. It's a great beer. One of my favorite classics.
Yes, it is a classic.
You don't see too many like smoked beers in the U.S. or I imagine even Canada very much anymore. That are like actually like locally brewed.
We actually have a couple different craft brewers around here that make pretty good ones. One of my favorites, there's a brewery in Toronto called Muddy York. They have one that's called Jailfire, which is a classic rock beer, and it's a fantastic name, and it's a fantastic beer. And it's available year round because it sells that well up here. I mean, it's a really well balanced rock beer. So it's got just like that. It just hits that level of smokiness where it's like, oh yeah, this is smoked malt, but it's not uncomfortably smoky. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. Jessie has lost her audio. I repeat, Jessie has lost her audio. We'll give Jessie a moment here to figure out what the hell just happened.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
It works.
Fishbowl audio. What happened to your headphones?
They died.
Oh, wah, wah, wah. You got to charge those things, Jessie.
They're Bluetooth, and you have to charge them. And I was using them yesterday, and I probably forgot to plug them in.
Happens to me a lot. I have several sets of Bluetooth headsets of varying types, and invariably I grab the set that has not been charged. I'll get 5 minutes into something, and it's like, boop, charge me.
Jeez. Yeah. So yeah, craft malt. I think it's a growing movement, and we're seeing it catch on. There's a lot of more breweries interested in using it. When I talk about craft malt, we do for our guild. We have some just like set guidelines on how we define it.
Okay.
So one is kind of similar to the independent craft brewery, terms that the BA use. We went the same thing for craft maltsters. We want them to be independently owned by at least a 76% majority. And then the other two factors that are more related to the grain itself are that it needs to be sourced within a 500-mile radius of the organization or of the farm or the malt house, wherever it's being malted. It needs to be a source within a 500-mile radius. And then it needs to be small. The other one is it just needs to be a small business. So when we define that by volume of their production. So annual production would be between like 5 to 10,000 metric tons annually is what a craft maltster would produce in malt.
That's a lot of malt.
Yeah, it is, right?
I could make a lot of beer from that much malt. That's awesome. So what ignited your passion to get into craft malting?
Well, So I originally was hired by the guild when I was back running my events promotions company for Montana. They were bringing their annual conference to Bozeman, Montana, where I was living at the time. And they needed an events planner type person to help just kind of run the conference that they have. It's about 2 days long, and then there was a day of workshops and tour stuff too that they needed help with. So I reached out and offered my services to them to just help out with event management, and we ended up getting the gig and worked with them for the conference. And then afterwards, about a year later, maybe it was less than a year later, but they advertised they were looking for an executive director, and I was like, well, that would be a really great. I like doing like association type work, working with lots of different types of people, and educational type things that we do. We organize a lot of events and stuff for the community and stuff like that. And those are the things I'm good at and I like to do. So it was a good fit.
Cool.
And plus, I get to work in the beer world.
Right. I mean, it's a win-win. You get to do something you like, and you get to do it in the beer world. I mean, how bad could that possibly be?
Right.
So if you don't mind me asking, what precipitated the move from Bozeman, Montana, back to Pennsylvania?
Well, if you live in the U.S., I don't know if it's like this in Canada, but rental prices and property, like real estate prices, have skyrocketed in a lot of the parts of the U.S., especially in the Intermountain West, in mountain towns like Bozeman and Boise and Fort Collins and Durango and just places like that. And that's kind of town I was living in. That's what Bozeman is. And
yep.
I could not afford to live there any longer.
Gotcha.
Basically.
Gotcha.
It was a bittersweet kind of to have to leave because I'd been there for 10 years. And I'd finally gotten to a point where like I was like, oh, maybe I can buy a house now here, or like, I want to be here. I'm gonna buy something, and because I was tired of renting and stuff, and it just was like impossible for me to do that. So I decided to move back to PA, where I'm originally from. And I was I wanted to see my family and stuff like that too, because I was living out west, I didn't get to come back as much.
Right.
And so like I hadn't even seen my family in like 3 years. So when I moved back, that was the first time I saw the family in like 3 years.
Some people might count that as a blessing.
Well, it was good. Well, it was good I think for a part of my life, I needed that space from them. But I don't feel like I need it anymore.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, and I totally understand the housing market here in the area I live in. I'm about an hour and a half from Toronto, and Toronto's housing market is so fucking stupid that places that are condemned, like they need to be completely just destroyed and built back up, are selling for millions of dollars. Because the housing market is absolutely stupid. I mean, I live, like I said, about an hour and a half from Toronto proper, and we have people that live out here that commute into Toronto because it's cheaper out here, but it's not cheap. I mean, a semi-detached, so you're looking like a townhouse type house, where you're in a building with like 3 or 4 other people that own their townhouse. They're like $400,000 and $500,000. It's absolutely insane. So I totally get the moving someplace cheaper.
Yeah. Well, that was about how it was in Bozeman. Like I had a friend buy a condo like place in kind of the summer of 2020. And they were paying like around $350,000 for a 2-bedroom condo that didn't even have a yard. Like it didn't have access to like a yard or anything like that. It was insane. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
this doesn't make any sense.
I know.
I can't do that. Like I just can't knowingly purchase something knowing that I'm getting ripped off so much.
I totally get it. I mean,
that price, like.
Yeah, my wife and I bought this place when I moved here about 3.5 years ago, and we bought it right before the housing market in this area started going crazy from all the people moving out of Toronto because they can't afford to live there. So yeah, we got a decent deal on our house, but we could probably sell it for 3 times what we paid for it right now if we wanted to sell it. But we like it, so yeah. It's crazy, and it's not just. I mean, I get it. I've been to Bozeman. Bozeman's a nice town. It's and
It is.
just like you were talking like with Fort Collins and all those places, they're all really nice towns. But the problem is people have realized they don't need to live where they work anymore, so they're moving out to all these places, and it's driving the real estate up because these people are used to they're used to spending X number of dollars on a house where they're from. So they come out and they're like, oh, well, that's nothing. And they put all this money into it and they drive up the prices for everybody else, for all the people that really can't afford it. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, this is ridiculous, man. It was ridiculous. And I saw in the window of opportunity and I took it, and my job with the guild is remote. It's 100% work from home. So I was able to do that, to make that decision and just go, and not have to, try to find a new job and all that.
Yeah, and that's a boon. I mean, that's huge, being able to do that. So tell me a little bit more about the guild. How long has it been in existence, and about how many members are there?
So the guild was founded in 2013. Originally, it was a small cohort of 8 Maltsters that kind of got it up off the ground. It was born in Massachusetts, the guild, because that's where the first craft malt house in the United States actually opened in Colorado, but then another one around the same time also opened in Massachusetts. And so the guild was actually founded by a woman named Andrea Stanley from Valley Malt in Massachusetts, and she's kind of like the one who kind of came up with the idea for it, and then the 8 Maltsters came together to form it and write bylaws and get us kind of made into a trade association. Since then, we've grown quite a bit. There are 69 or 70 craft malt houses in our voting membership currently. And then we have a whole lot of other members in other categories, like our allied trade folks, who are, equipment manufacturers and seed suppliers and malt quality testing labs, barley research labs, folks like that. And then we also have farmers who are members, who are growing malt barley for Maltsters. We have brewers and distillers who are members. So in total, I would say we have around 580-ish individual, just humans as our members currently.
Are you sure they're humans?
Yes. Unless someone's not telling me the whole story, I do think they are all human.
Is that a requirement to join? You have to be a human?
Actually, no, it is not. There is nothing in our bylaws about the person joining has to be a human. It doesn't say that.
So
I have a funny story related to bylaws and non-humans.
Sure, spit it out. That's what this is all about.
Because this is a really random coincidence. So, like I told you before, I was the president of my homebrew club for 4 years. So I helped our club basically become incorporated, and we wrote bylaws for the club. And the year that we did all that, our treasurer's dog was one of our board officers. Yeah, he was voted in. Someone nominated a dog, our homebrew club dog. His name was, to give him full credit, his name was Saison.
Perfect.
Okay, so Saison, his name and his owner signed for him on what we had, our founding bylaws for our homebrew club included a dog on the board of of officers for the club. So I just non-humans can be in homebrew clubs too.
So to any lizard people who happen to be watching this episode when it comes out, know that you too could be a member of the Craft Maltsters Guild.
You could. We do not discriminate against anything, really. We are a very open-minded community. I like to think, but yeah.
That is pretty awesome. I mean, the fact that you're helping to advocate for smaller maltsters, and advocating for people to look closer to home, to look at more local stuff. That's very commendable.
Yeah.
You know. Okay. I gotta ask this, and you gotta tell me the answer. If people are interested in becoming a member of the Craft Maltsters Guild, what do they have to do, and who do they contact?
Well, they could one, go to our website, craftmalting.com, and there's a Become a Member button right at the top of the page that you can hit and find the information about whatever membership category you think you fit into. There's a few different categories, so make sure you read the details to figure out which one fits you best. And if you don't know which one fits you best, then email me and we can get it sorted out. But my email is just director@craftmalting.com.
Awesome. Nice and simple. Kind of like how I am. I'm nice and simple. You know, I'm just a guy who likes beer.
And we do, since you're a home brewer, and maybe there's some other homebrew folks who join in on this call, we do actually have a homebrew supply shop list on our website that lists homebrew suppliers across the North America mostly, but I think they're mostly in the U.S., but there might be one or two in Canada on the list. But
excellent.
It's basically a list of just homebrew supply shops that carry craft malt. And it'll say whether they ship, or it all have online ordering available, stuff like that. So you can find that under the resources tab on our website.
Awesome. So
handy resource for homebrewers.
So you said you have multiple levels of membership. So there's there's people that are actually maltsters. There's people that do ancillary things. You mentioned breweries and distilleries. Can home brewers actually become members of the guild, or?
Yeah, you could. You totally could. I would recommend a home brewer be like an individual member.
Yeah.
It's $150 a year. You'll get access to all the same educational resources and discounts on our events as any other member. Yeah.
That's cool. Because there are a lot of trade organizations that are pretty exclusive, and they don't allow like the home brewers or smaller individuals to be members. So it's actually nice to hear
that's
that.
Not us. That's not us. We welcome anyone and everyone into the craft malt community. And yeah, so I would recommend anybody like that just become an individual member.
That's awesome. I might actually look into becoming an individual member just to help support your organization.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I drink enough malt-based products and I brew enough malt-based products that it probably makes sense.
Yeah. If you were interested in learning more about craft malt, we're actually doing a conference in February. There's actually going to be in-person and virtual stuff happening.
Okay.
So it's a two-part conference, basically. First part is in person in Portland, Maine. And then the second part is 1 week later, all online. But there'll just be educational sessions on various topics related to the malt industry, craft malting industry, brewing and distilling of craft malt. There'll be some business stuff and things like that in there too. But it's going to be a really cool roundup of just interesting both technical talks and more, kind of basic talks for everybody that's interested in malt.
Awesome. And I assume all those details are on the website?
They are. Everything's on the website.
Of course.
Everything's on the website.
Everything's on the interwebs.
Yeah, Yeah, you should know. You're on the internet. You're from the internet.
I am from the internet, right? You know, people ask me where I'm from. I just say the internet because nobody wants to really know where I'm actually from. Awesome. Well, Jesse, we have.
Well, where are you actually from?
I'm originally from a town called Rockford, Illinois. It's about an hour and a half northwest of Chicago. So when people ask, I just say I'm from the Chicago area because nobody knows where Rockford, Illinois is. And now when people ask, I say, well, I live near Toronto because I live an hour and a half from Toronto because nobody knows the town I actually live in. It's called Brantford, Ontario. It's got two big claim to fame. It's the home of Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, and the telephone was invented here. Yeah, I live about 10 minutes away from the Alexander Graham Bell homestead, so it's a big deal.
That is really cool.
But well,
I didn't realize that telephone was invented in Canada.
It was, yeah. Alexander Graham Bell invented it here in Canada. And I guess our other claim to fame is if you're a hockey fan, the Zamboni Corporation is headquartered here in Brantford.
Yes! I've seen one of those before. Impressive machine.
Yeah, they're pretty fun. I mean, you go to a hockey game, everybody wants to be the guy that gets to drive the Zamboni because it looks like it'd be fun driving around the ice rink. But nah, it is what it is. I live in it's a rapidly gentrifying town. It used to be like a little farm town, and I think they're projecting that in the next 5 years it's going to grow by 30% because everybody's exiting from the Toronto area because they can't afford it. So our area is getting bigger. I think right now we're at right about 100,000 people. When we moved here, I think it was like 90,000. So we've gone up like 10,000 people in 3 years. It's a pretty big move.
Yeah, sounds like Bozeman.
Yeah, well, and that's pretty much the entire province of Ontario. Anything that's anywhere near Toronto, if you can say Toronto, you live too close to it to afford a house. Yeah, it is. It is. But the one nice thing about where I live, it might be a little sleepy farm community right now, but within 30 minutes of me, I have at least 6 different craft breweries. And if I expand that out to a 60-minute drive in any direction, it probably triples. It probably goes out to about 18 to 20. So, I mean,
that's awesome.
I've got plenty of options when it comes to beer, and they instituted a thing here during the pandemic that allowed all the small craft breweries to ship their beer across the province, which was a big deal because you never used to be able to. It was verboten, much like the Pennsylvania beer laws. The laws in Ontario are very similar, where you have specific stores for beer, specific stores for liquor, and things like that. You can only buy a certain amount. You can only buy.
They've gotten a little lax here with that kind of stuff. Like, you can go into a gas station and buy beer now.
Oh, nice.
But if you go, the weird thing is so like when I go to the grocery store here, in the grocery store, there's like an aisle that's for the beer and like the wine and stuff. Okay. And there's this little cash register at the end of the aisle, and you have to pay for the beer at the end of the aisle. And if you don't, you get in trouble and like have to go back there and do it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, why can't I just pay for it all at the cash register? Why is it going to be right here in this little spot?
Yeah, the last time I was in Pennsylvania was about it's probably been about 5 years ago. In a previous life, I was an executive for a medical corporation, and I used to do training out at a resort out in the Poconos every year. And that was always the weirdest thing is you'd go to the grocery store. Like, I'd rent a house, and I'd go to the grocery store to buy food, and then I'd buy the food, and then I had to go to this little separate area to go buy the beer. And then if I wanted liquor, I actually had to go across the parking lot into a separate building.
The liquor store.
Yeah, to a liquor store. It's like I couldn't just buy it all. Being from Illinois, I could walk into any grocery store and it had a liquor department that had beer and wine and hard alcohol and spirits, and so it's like, what? And then I moved up here to Ontario, and it's very much like it was in Pennsylvania when I was there. I'm like, oh, okay, I know how this works.
Yeah. Speaking of like weird laws, when I was in Montana, the beer laws there were so the law was that you could only drink 3 pints per person per day at a brewery. Okay, so they could serve you 48 ounces of beer, no more. But you could go to another brewery and do it all over
Do
again.
it all over, yeah.
But and then the other weird thing was the breweries were only allowed to serve their beer until 8 p.m. And after 8 p.m. they had to stop serving beer and shut down. Like at 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Oh, hey, way to kill the weekend, guys.
Like literally, these are, and it's still this way. Like when I moved there, it was that way, and they tried to get it changed a lot of times. The Montana Brewers Association has been advocating for it like for years to the legislature in Montana, and they just like the Montana Tavern Association like lobbies and has a bunch of money, and they keep lobbying against it.
Yeah,
like the bars and the taverns are like threatened by the craft brewers, and it's like weird. But it just made it like really challenging for breweries to like, to be open, and that I just never understood why like you could only drink beer till 8 o'clock at the brewery. So
apparently after 8 o'clock they want you to go to the bars.
Yeah, I guess craft breweries turn into like a pumpkin or something,
right?
Like at 8 p.m.
Right, the gates to hell open and Satan shows up, and you can't have beer after 8 p.m. here. No, it's there are a lot of strange laws when it comes to booze. Much like you were saying, it's starting to loosen up here as well. They've got a few. Like just in the last couple of years, they've had a few private bottle shops open that are selling booze, that are selling beer from different breweries, all in one location, as opposed to going to the government owned stores. And they've started, a big thing when I first moved here, they started allowing beer and wine to be sold at grocery stores, and everybody thought it was going to be the end of the world. And lo and behold, the world is still here. And the liquor stores have not gone out of business, even though beer and wine are being sold at grocery stores now. So it's always the same thing. They're always like, oh, it's going to destroy this, it's going to destroy that. It's like when I don't know how it is in Pennsylvania, but in Illinois they outlawed smoking in all indoor buildings, any public space, and all the bars were like, oh my God, this is going to kill our business. And then in actuality, their business went up by like 30%. Yeah, so
Well, yeah, it did, because nobody wants to sit around a bunch of people smoking cigarettes.
Right. I don't want to go and sit in a cloud of smoke. I want to go and drink beer and have fun with my friends.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's the same here.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jesse, we have been talking for about 37 minutes. So this is the part of the show where I say, hey, if you enjoyed watching this episode, please click like. And if you're generous, click subscribe and click the little bell to be notified when new episodes come out. If you have any questions for me or for Jesse, or you want to know more about craft malting, because I mean, honestly, it's a pretty cool subject, especially if you're into being hyper local, like a lot of people have become lately. Please leave those comments below. I will forward them on. Otherwise, if you actually listened, she gave her email address, and you can send her all the questions you'd like too. Yeah. Ooh, that was dangerous, Jesse. Because
it's the work email. I have to give it.
Yeah, you do. I mean, yeah,
it's on the internet.
It's on the internet. That's right.
It's already on the internet. People can find it if they want to.
If you have any suggestions for a beer style, a actual beer, or a guest you'd like me to have on, I mean, because I will try and get anybody on. I'm still working on Ryan Reynolds, ladies. I'm still working on him. He hasn't responded yet, but maybe one of these days I will try and get anybody on my show that wants to talk about booze or booze related items. So that's the way it goes. Until next time, I'm Rob from the internet. Cheers.
And I'm Jesse from the Craft Maltsters Guild. Cheers.